And we are live. Good evening, everybody. It is the post-match review show for Burnley 0, Manchester United 1. The post-match review show, and I'm sure, as I'm sure all of you United fans who are tuning in, I'm absolutely, um, you know, ecstatic. So happy that we've managed to get the victory that we needed. Another integral, important win, which now places us top of the table. 3 points clear now of our closest challengers, Liverpool. Obviously, Manchester City have a couple of games in hand, I believe, which could mean that they might come closer. But I know it's always better to have those points in the bag rather than having games to play because they're not necessarily points. But yeah, fantastic win for Manchester United. Going to Burnley Turf Moor is always a difficult and tricky proposition at the best of times, and particularly now when we are, as everyone knows, fighting at the business end of the table. The first time, indeed, as all sort of statistics and facts are coming out, the first time that we are indeed in a top of the table at this point, obviously in the new year, since Sir Alex Ferguson's final year, in which we obviously won number 20 in 2012-2013 season. And yes, I mean that was the main thing really, was getting the 3 points. It didn't have to be pretty or easy on the eye. It just had to be a business-like and professional performance from Manchester United. We know that we possess on paper significant quality. You could see, I believe there was a statistic which flashed up on my screen that Burnley have a much cheaper squad comparatively to ours. I think their starting 11 was in actual fact much lower than our own starting 11 in terms of market value or how much we paid for them. So like I said, there was a major disparity in quality, but that's nothing if you don't have the endeavour and the perseverance in order to make sure that 3 points are yours and that you win the match. And that is indeed what Manchester United did. I thought the team itself was absolutely superb from the first whistle to the final one. Making sure that we go into Anfield at the weekend with that 3 point gap and in the best possible position, ready to hopefully beat them and then extend our lead even further, if we can be so fortunate, and hopefully that will transpire in the end. Yes, so obviously we'll, enough of kind of eulogising or congratulating the players and the club and the manager, of course, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, on a phenomenal job, reaching top of the table. It's really is a significant milestone. Hopefully it gives them the impetus now to push on, and like I said, extend the lead over Liverpool when Anfield comes, and in the coming weeks and months up until May, hopefully looking to stay in and around that title race as much as possible, if not even extend our lead further and further up the table, and hopefully extend that gap much better. Okay, so we've got a few comments as well, which I'll just read before we get into some of the match, because we always want to make sure that we read the comments for the kind people who've tuned in. So we've got Dedrick here, who says, "Guess who's at the wheel?" Yes, it's everyone's all sort of back on the Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's bus. Because to be fair, absolutely sensational, really, to be top of the league at this point. A lot of people, didn't necessarily foresee that. Especially after what many United fans and obviously many people who are sort of pundits around the game would see as quite a negative transfer window in terms of not acquiring the first choice targets for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer back in the late summer, early autumn period. But Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and the players have really dug in. Obviously, a very disappointing start to the season when there were calls for Ole potentially to be sacked. But to be fair to Ole, he's ridden through the storm. And since probably I think the end of October when we lost to Arsenal, I'm not even sure. I don't think we've even been beaten in the league. I don't think ever since then. So it's been phenomenal form. Ever since Bruno Fernandes came in, again, statistics will be floating around. I believe that we've actually accrued 6 more points, I think, than any other team since Bruno Fernandes has come into the team. just under a year ago. So it shows what an incredible impact that he's made upon the fortunes of the team, and long may it continue ultimately. And if it does, then Ollie really will truly be at the wheel, and will get the extension to his contract, which ultimately he will deserve if he wins silverware, in May. And Dedrick's obviously said as well, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. So yes, please do, if you are tuning in for the first time, or even if you are a regular on here. Liking, sharing and subscribe doesn't cost anything, and it is very beneficial and helps us to hopefully grow the channel. And obviously, if you do want to get involved, we have had recent feedback from some individuals who've obviously joined in the group and so forth. If you do want to get involved, then just send us a message on Twitter, direct message, the @RealUnitedTalk Twitter handle, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible to look at getting you involved if you do wish to be involved. And then we've also got Jess in here. Good to see you, Jess. So she's put, see, I told you to put some belief in our Ollie, grinding out just like the old days with Fergie. Yes, Jess, it was, it's one of those things where we often forget, obviously in title races, because we haven't been part of one for so many years, we often forget that there are these grueling days where you just have to just get the ball over the line. You have to be slightly better, make sure that you close out games, because it's all about those points. It seems silly to say really, but obviously the team that accrues the most amount of points in the league will win it eventually, and there's no such thing as a team who plays brilliantly and perfectly on every single occasion. What marks out a title winning team so often is a team that are able to win a match when it is so narrow, fine margins. Even when they are actually the worst team, they still manage to get those results. Certainly, this wasn't actually this match, which as I said, we'll delve into a bit more deeply and try and glean some more insight into the actual match itself. But because certainly this wasn't one of those matches. But the most important thing today, as I've sort of iterated previously, was those 3 points. No matter how we got it, and we've got them. So job done. The boys need to dust themselves off. A momentary maybe pat on the back or a bit of congratulations amongst them. But ultimately, the bigger tests coming this weekend, and then no matter what, really, in the weeks and months to come, hopefully to continue this form. And as I said, things are really looking up for Manchester United, and obviously all of us fans and everyone who loves and adores the club and is involved with the club as well. We'll obviously move into the actual match itself now. We've sort of given you an overall insight or overall picture of where we are in the season, and what my thoughts are in regards to that. But in terms of the actual match, I was extremely pleased. If we start as we always do with the team selection, I was extremely pleased with the way that Ollie set up the team. It was the exact 11 that I had predicted or wanted us to play. In previous bits and pieces. So it was a perfect sort of thing where we've always thought that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has persistently picked Victor Lindelof and Harry Maguire at the back. It's been mentioned countless times that we needed to look for some pace next to either Victor Lindelof or Harry Maguire, but obviously the Harry Maguire has come into his own with Eric Bailly coming to the fore. It's been absolutely exceptional since it's come in. Obviously, the halfway through last month, Eric Bailly's been an absolute revelation. Harry Maguire looks like he's so much more comfortable and assured when he has Eric Bailly there. There were many occasions again today where Eric Bailly came across when Harry Maguire looked like he'd be outpaced. I've sort of already mentioned this before, but it's almost as though Eric Bailly is the Superman to Harry Maguire's Lois Lane. Such is the way that he saves him on so many occasions, and it's so refreshing to have that there, have that speed, and it allows us as United to play so much further up the park. We saw in the second half the way that we controlled and dominated that game. Dominated all the possession in that second half, and obviously that was in no small part to the fact that we were able to play so much further up the field because we had Eric Bailly's pace. And we've seen so many times again over the games when Eric Bailly's played that he is that sort of rescue option, comes in all the time, makes tackles, challenges. No one's going to beat him in a foot race, and it's just he's been sensational, really. Eric Bailly, long may it continue. He needs to stay fit because I'll be doubtful that Victor Lindelof and Harry Maguire can be the centre back partnership that will see us to where we need to go this season. I've said it for months, and it looks like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is finally actually fulfilling what he needed to do. We've seen over the past month or so when it's Bailly and Maguire, we've seen the difference in the defence, we've seen the difference in the entire team, and so much more attacking and offensive approach. So as I said, it was good to see Bailly in the team. Shaw brings obviously the defensive discipline, and so does Wan-Bissaka. But obviously in midfield, I've been quite vocal about the midfield that I wanted us to see on a week in, week out basis. I think our best three, as we saw at the back end of last season when they got us top four. Bruno Fernandes, Paul Pogba, and Nemanja Matic. We want to see that as much as possible. Moving forward, I think it just gives you that perfect blend and balance of offensive and defensive. Excellent players, all three of them, really. Like I said, I don't feel like Fred McTominay, and obviously Van der Beek may come into that conversation as well because he is very talented. But certainly for me, those three are our best midfield, and it would be good to see Ollie continuing to play them because, like I'll sort of go into that game. And those players, I thought in the midfield, we absolutely bossed them, dominated them completely. And I thought that, Matic and Pogba were phenomenal in particular. I thought, and obviously Bruno has to play because of that goal and assist threat that he brings. And obviously up front, we had the three sort of titans, as we sort of speak about. So Rashford, Martial and Cavani. So like I said, I was extremely happy with the way that the team was set up. And very pleased with the way that Ollie had set out the troops. So let me just get rid of this. And so let's go on to let's go on to the actual match itself. So I thought that in the first half, Manchester United perhaps potentially made quite a slow sort of start. I thought we were sort of trying our best to sort of try and impose ourselves upon the game. But obviously with Burnley, you always get that sense of a bit of danger in terms of set pieces. And I thought that in that first half, we were quite tactless, sometimes giving away fouls and free kicks, because even when it's quite far away from the goal. Obviously, when they're able to throw in the long balls, it seemed like obviously Woods and Barnes, who are both very physical, dominant specimen, were able to get in there and get the flick on, get the heads to it, the passes and so forth. And I thought some of the knockdowns were really very good. I thought, as I said, they're sort of. They were quite dangerous without being dangerous. I thought they got into very good positions. I thought positionally there were lots of areas that they seemed to get into with the bits of free kicks and so forth, but ultimately they weren't necessarily threatening. I think David De Gea had quite a quiet, first half in particular. Didn't have anything to do. Certainly, I think about halfway through the second half, they showed a statistic which said that Burnley had no shots on target. Up to that juncture, so we can see that David De Gea was largely untroubled, almost a passive observer in the match in terms of what was going on. Maguire and Bailly were doing excellently on there, but obviously doing a good job of making sure that it was contained and that any danger was ultimately snuffed out as quickly and as positively as possible. So yes, excellent from our defence in that first half, and obviously offensively, if we look towards that, I thought that we were controlling possession in that first half, but not some of the tactics weren't necessarily conducive to beating Burnley. I thought that up until the final third, let's say, Burnley were quite content to let us have the ball at that point. And then what they would do is they would almost crowd the centre of the park and then allow the outballs to be to Luke Shaw and Aaron Wan-Bissaka on the wings effectively. But obviously neither of those are particularly proficient attacking fullbacks. So they were quite content for both Wan-Bissaka and Shaw to have all those balls. And obviously, when the ball was whipped in, it was often Cavani against their centre backs. And of course, in those sort of situations, Cavani's going to have to get very lucky sometimes when he's obviously got more men around him, and he can be dominated in those situations. And often that did seem to occur in that first half. Balls were whipped in. It didn't seem to matter whether they were floated or with pace or delivery. Every single time, it was obviously Burnley getting to it. It seemed, and obviously Manchester United was struggling to break down that stubborn Burnley defence, which we always knew. To be fair, we always knew that Burnley would have a very tough chance or very good chance of nullifying us, and so it was proving in that first half. We should probably go on to some of the key incidents in the first half as well. Just obviously as Real United Talks in here, remember to like, share and subscribe as well for us. So that'd be much appreciated if you are watching, whether it's live or on replay. But yeah, some of the key incidents that happened. Obviously, we did have a few opportunities in that first half. There was the opportunity that Martial had when it came across, and obviously he tried the acrobatic overhead kick. Gary Neville had called it as handball on the channel which I was watching. I was quite, obviously, because we don't get necessarily the angles that the commentators get, I was quite hopeful that it was going to be a handball and there was going to be a penalty of some kind, because you do need some elements maybe of luck or chance, or these sort of tight games, you need those decisive moments to go for you. So, but obviously it was Nervale hit. I think it was Ben Mee. I think it was in the head. Straight away. And then of course we also had, as well, in that first half, we had the disallowed goal for Harry Maguire. The disallowed goal, for Harry Maguire. I will get into a few more comments in a moment, but we had the disallowed goal for Harry Maguire. Very, very soft, in my opinion. It's quite difficult sometimes to see what the letter of the law is, because they change it so often. But I thought that Luke Shaw stood up a beautiful cross to the far post. Harry Maguire had all the running advantage, all the height advantage in the world. He was coming onto the ball, and obviously a slight knock on the back of his back of the Burnley defender led to Kevin Friend disallowing the goal, which ultimately, it seemed a bit harsh for me that was a disallowed goal. I've seen lots of similar goals scored by, for example, I remember Ronaldo scored a similar one for Juventus, where he was slightly leaning on the player against Atletico Madrid, I think last season or somewhere in that region. Very, very similar in terms of a slight brush, but ultimately he was always going to make that header. And I think really realistically that goal should have stood. And the other key incident which happened in that first half was the long VAR wait that we had, whilst lots of different things obviously occurred within the same movement, so to speak. When Manchester United were defending weren't defending impeccably. Luke Shaw obviously tries to make the tackle on a Burnley player, gets the ball, but obviously bounces off the Burnley player and comes away. But Luke Shaw follows through on him with his foot and his studs. The ball gets, as Manchester United, as we know, incredibly proficient and quick on the counter-attack, and obviously counter-attack very, very quickly and efficiently, passing the ball up. And I think it was Bruno Fernandes, I think, who played the long ball into Edinson Cavani's path. Cavani was obviously tussling with the last man, which I think was Robbie Brady, and got hauled down. And obviously the VAR took a lengthy period to determine whether it was a possible goal scoring opportunity, which of course it did seem to be. It did seem like the Burnley player was the last man, and Cavani, and I think indeed Rashford was the other side as well. So it could have gone that way, but obviously they brought it all the way back because Luke Shaw had sort of clipped the Burnley player on his way through, even though he got the ball initially with his foot. So that was incredibly anxious, but also exciting. We had hoped that we were going to get a sending off for a Burnley player, and then obviously the match is slightly more straightforward. But then it almost seemed as though Luke Shaw might get sent off as well. But ultimately a yellow card for Luke Shaw was given and a free kick for Burnley, who got another chance to sort of whip in a ball or crosses and try and get involved in that way. But yeah, as I said, it was ultimately a very frustrating first half. Chances were at a premium. But we did obviously have the goal, which was, in my opinion, wrongly disallowed from Harry Maguire. And then it's a flip of a coin almost as to what decision you would make in terms of the VAR regarding the Luke Shaw yellow card eventually and the free kick to Burnley. We'll go through a few more comments here as well as we sort of summarise the first half there. So we've got from Jess as well. She says, I don't like Pogba, but credit for the second half performance. But I thought they all played well for the most part. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, obviously, I am quite a big Pogba fan. I don't want to sort of get into it too much, but yeah, Pogba was very good today, and I'll sort of go into it maybe a bit later on. But yeah, I think bringing it into the final part of that comment, I do agree that they all played well for the most part. I thought it was very much a team performance. There were certain standouts, but everyone seemed to be playing for the win, and there was some excellent play. And ultimately, it had to be, every single player had to be on their job today to make sure that was a win, and every single player was. And both up front, I thought, and defence, I thought every player played their part, and that's what you need in these matches if you're going to go on to greater things, which hopefully we will do as the season goes on. And obviously, Dedrick said, I've tweeted out the leak for you, George. Thank you very much, Dedrick. And yes, so ultimately, the first half had come to a close, and like I said, from Manchester United's point of view, we'd had very few chances, not necessarily created too much, in terms of opportunities. Perhaps feeling aggrieved about the disallowed goal. I think Solskjaer had come out with some rather stern comments about his disapproval for that decision regarding Maguire's goal. But we had, as I sort of spoke about previously, we had not necessarily created too much in terms of where the game was going. As I said, the tactic was to sort of get out. And in many ways, it was almost playing into Burnley's hands, and they were trying to make us do it. Was obviously playing out to both full-backs, and both Shaw and Wan-Bissaka were trying sort of driven crosses and things, but nothing was necessarily coming off. It just wasn't, unfortunately. And with those sort of situations when Burnley have the numerical supremacy in terms of the box, it has to be perfectable in those situations. And ultimately, it wasn't at any stage in that first half. And obviously, we also got from Dedrick, if Maguire's goal was a foul, then we should stop playing football. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think it was extremely soft. I think perhaps the only thing you could say is that when, and again, I'm not familiar entirely with the new intrinsics of the law, but you could say that because of Kevin Friend's decision wasn't necessarily of obviously disallowing the goal, wasn't necessarily a clear and obvious error. That sometimes they'll just let the decision stand. And obviously, I'm sure other rival fans, if we're looking at the VAR, and if we're looking at the VAR, I'm sure that other fans from opposition rival fans who were wanting us to slip up today, I'm sure a lot of them would have thought that Luke Shaw deserved a red card for that, for his challenge as well, which I didn't feel was a red card in any way, because like I said, he got the ball and it was very much accidental. And yeah, thank you very much for that, Jess. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Pogba fan, when are you getting your Pogba FC tattoo? And yeah, we'll get rid of that. Okay. Yes. So, like I said, the first half came to a close. I thought that we definitely had the better of the possession. It was just a case of that you just needed that. As I sort of iterated at half time, you just need that one moment of quality. Even if it wasn't necessarily quality, even if it was lucky, you just need that one moment to in these sort of tight games. Second half, I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer done a very good tactical job in terms of organising Manchester United for that initial part of that second half. We came all out of the blocks, racing. We just seemed to dominate the ball in that early part of that second half, and I thought that more and more on the ball, Paul Pogba and Nemanja Matic were seeming to pick up space. I'm not sure whether Burnley were perhaps tired from their exertions in the first half, where they'd been obviously chasing Manchester United shadows, but had been for the most part, keeping their defensive discipline and formation. It seemed like, for whatever reason, whether it was, like I said, the tiredness of Burnley, or whether it was the re-energised Manchester United, probably a combination of both, if we're honest. It seemed like Matic and Pogba had more time on the ball, and when you give quality players like those two, and obviously Bruno was also getting a lot more time, and you get obviously quality players like those three in the midfield, you give them more time and on the ball, and we were getting, our passing game was absolutely superb in that second half. I thought, absolutely controlling possession. Eric Bailly, again, as I've mentioned, with his pace, was allowing Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Luke Shaw to run forward, and we really almost camped in the Burnley half, and it seemed at any point the goal would come. And of course, there were sort of half opportunities. I think that Pogba sort of created one for Edinson Cavani, where sort of swung his boot at it. I think there was another one in the box when we were sort of trying to trick our way through. I think there was another one where Martial took the ball off Cavani when he was about to unleash on a second chance that we had. And I think Bruno as well was having a bit more joy with his long range shots. I think there was another shot from him that rasped the Burnley goalkeeper, rasped the Burnley goalkeeper's hands. So we were getting closer and closer, but as sort of time wore on, although you thought that a goal was inevitable, in those situations you never know whether maybe it just might not be our day, and that's ultimately when you need perhaps a bit of luck or a bit of skill or anything like that, just something to determine the game. And in the 70th minute or 71st minute, Paul Pogba initially wins the header in the midfield, flicks on. The ball comes out wide to Marcus Rashford, who maybe hadn't been necessarily having the best of games by his standards, because he has been exemplary this season. Delivers an excellent cross, exquisite cross for Paul Pogba. And obviously, when you're a man of Paul Pogba's considerable talent, striking a ball like that, when a ball comes across in the volley, it's almost like bread and butter. Got quite lucky on the deflection. Obviously, the ball I think was going on target anyway, and of course it will be his goal. But got quite lucky on the deflection, and then it went in through the goalkeeper's legs. But you need those moments of fortune, and obviously Pogba wheels away. And we know at that juncture that all we need to do is maybe for 20-25 minutes, we've just got to hold on to that lead, maybe try and clinch a second goal if the occasion merits it, but just keep on doing what we're doing. We'd known that we'd really given Burnley absolutely no chances. Like I mentioned, I haven't even had a chance to check the overall final match statistics, but Burnley can't. I don't even think Burnley had a shot on target. They might have had like maybe one or two in that final few minutes, but up until that juncture, we kept them at arm's length. David De Gea must have been absolutely thrilled with the way that his defence were defending, with the defence and the way that they had, kept up such a dogged defence and such a persevered, and it was absolutely fantastic. And obviously in that second part of that second half, defending that lead, I thought the Manchester United did excellently well. Really made sure that everyone was closing down. I thought obviously Ollie made a few substitutions, bringing on I think Greenwood for Rashford, which was kind of sort of like for like substitution at that juncture. And then obviously couple of perhaps injury concerns, towards the end as well. Bringing on obviously Scott McTominay came on as well. And I thought that obviously for Bruno Fernandes, I think it was, and then I think there was a Tuan Sabi for Anthony Martial, wasn't there? Because that's the only sort of problem that we had in those last few minutes, was that some of our players were picking up unnecessary knocks and niggles, and you had to, obviously, like I said, Nemanja Matic would seem to be clutching his groin. Anthony Martial also seemed to have maybe some hamstring troubles as well. So we can only hopes and prayers with those players to make sure that, because all of them are vital. It's very much, I think, if not our best team, definitely had many of our best players in it, on form players. So you want to make sure that all of them are raring and fit to go for the weekend. So I'm hoping that both of them, as well as any others who picked up knocks, are all going to be fit for what promises to be a very grueling but also very important match at the weekend. The only sort of potential area which I would hope for them to improve upon would be some of the clinical nature. I think in front of goal, I think Cavani had a few chances, particularly in that second half, and I think also Anthony Martial, when he was sent through by Cavani, obviously in those last few minutes, and then pulled up obviously with his hamstring, I thought that they really should have done better. I think Martial should have done better with that opportunity, because you never know, Burnley might have had that one opportunity and got that equaliser, and then obviously we're missing a couple of points, so we need to be more clinical, certainly against Liverpool as well. So there is a bit of cause concern about our strikers, but hopefully they will come good in the next few weeks. Of course, they have been very good up until this point, but you need them really to get in amongst the goals as well, and to make sure that when you have in these really tight, narrow games, that they have the decisiveness in front of goal to make sure that we get the 3 points. But yes, it was all in all an excellent win. Obviously, as Jess has said as well, hopefully they will all be okay for the next game. Yeah, we need a full squad, a full roster of players available for the Anfield game as well. And obviously, she said, "What do you think the score will be against Liverpool?" I think I would. It's very difficult, to be honest with you. I'm hoping that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer will pick the same team that he played with, injuries permitting. But as I said, hopefully all of them will be fit. But I think he should pick the same team as he picked today. There's still a few days until the Liverpool game. I think it's, you have to go with that strongest team that you have available. And for me, I think that is very much the team that we've got. The team that started today, I think, deserves to go have the opportunity to go to Anfield and try and win that game. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer might choose to bring in McTominay and Fred as well, because they give more of that defensive solidity against what will probably be quite an offensive Liverpool. But we all know that they've struggled with their injuries. They're absolutely ravaged, particularly at the back. And I think this is a real chance for us to put considerable pressure on them by going there and winning. Liverpool have got an incredible record at home. They haven't lost in quite a few years, I think, now at home in the Premier League. So we need to make sure that we can hopefully upset the apple cart, go there and win, and obviously take a convincing lead and commanding grasp of this Premier League, which a win would evoke. My overall sort of final comments in terms of the match before we sort of round up things was that for me, my man of the match is going to be Paul Pogba. As I said, obviously I'm a big fan of Paul Pogba, but I thought today in particular he was very, very good. Passing completion was absolutely superb. Controlled the tempo of the game, and obviously got the vital goal as well, which is, in these games, when obviously it's going to have to be Pogba or Bruno or Rashford or whomever it's going to have to be, we're going to have to keep on relying on players to step up in these games to make sure that we get the amount of points that we need to win, to hopefully go far in this season. And it was Paul Pogba's day today, but there were also very many stellar performances throughout the team. I thought Nemanja Matic, like I've mentioned, was absolutely incredible. I think his calmness and composure on the ball, the way that he obviously comes, he's such a joy to behold, really, in Nemanja Matic. I think when he comes, obviously behind the centre backs, offering another out ball for them, the way that he's so controlled in terms of how he retains possession. I thought he was absolutely sublime again today, Nemanja Matic, and as obviously both he and Paul Pogba in that midfield, I thought were very, very good. I thought up front, the chances were at a premium, but I thought they all did reasonably well in terms of the hold-up play. You won't necessarily get too many chances against Burnley, and I thought that there were some good bits and pieces from them, and obviously from Bruno Fernandes, and obviously Eric Bailly and Harry Maguire, I thought were incredible. Very, very solid, competent partnership. Absolutely dominated Burnley. Like I said, restricted them to few, if any, shots on target and opportunities. David De Gea was almost able to pull up his pipe and slippers and his deck chair. Such was the lack of involvement that he was having at some points, which is what Eric Bailly, like I've said before, gives you. He gives you that pace and enables us to play a very possession-based game in the opposition half. And of course, when the ball's in the opposition half, that means the opposition can't hurt you. And you've got Eric Bailly's pace on the recovery. So yeah, very, very good. And obviously Jess has said, yeah, agree, Matic, and thought Harry was also very good. Yeah, absolutely. I think Harry Maguire was brilliant as well. Yeah, Harry Maguire and Eric Bailly, I think that's a very good partnership that we can look forward to, hopefully, because I know that Eric Boy has his injury problems. Hopefully, it's one that they can really build upon and look forward to. And obviously, you've still got Victor Lindelof and Axel Tuanzebe, who are both good centre backs as well to add into the mix. So things are looking ultimately extremely positive. And I think that's probably going to be the sort of overall end message in terms of the match. Ultimately, the job is done, but the job still has many more chapters. The book has many more chapters that are to be written in terms of this season. We move on with the journey. We move on to hopefully bigger and better things. It's very much a tick in the box in so many ways in terms of our defence and attack. But the players now need to retain the overall objective in mind, which would be the league itself. And we're now looking forward to the Liverpool match at the weekend, where I am hopeful that a victory will be acquired, because I think it will be such an incredible statement in terms of the amount of points that we'd move ahead of Liverpool. I think the psychological blow that it might deal Liverpool would be significant. Obviously, losing their unbeaten home record, and also the amount of points that we'd be ahead of them. I think it would be such a significant thing if we can beat them at Anfield, and I am extremely hopeful that we can do so. So onwards and upwards, really, in terms of when I'll see you again, obviously, which will be this weekend in the aftermath of the Liverpool United match. All that sort of remains for me to do is just get the bits and pieces out of the way. So we've got obviously you're watching me on the Real United Talk YouTube channel. You can obviously like, share, and subscribe if you would be so kind. And remember to follow us on Twitter as well. Obviously at the Real United Talk. We're looking to increase our sort of following and hopefully get more and more of you guys involved and really sort of listen to your voice and your opinion, because obviously all of you matter. And thank you very much for watching the stream. But that's all from me. Thank you obviously to Jess, Dedrick. And obviously, I think we had a couple of others in there as well. So thank you very much for all your support and involvement and contributions and comments during the show. That was very much appreciated. But thank you very much, and take care. Enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll see you all guys after the Liverpool match.